Okay, let's get right into it. A major global crisis is unfolding as we speak. Not on some distant battlefield, but at sea, in one of the most critical shipping lanes on the entire planet. And trust me, what's happening here could directly affect the price you pay for just about everything.
I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? The idea that one single narrow strip of water could hold that much power over all of us? Well, that's exactly the situation we're facing right now in the Strait of Hormuz.
And this one number is really all you need to know to understand why this is such a big deal. 20%. One-fifth of the entire world's daily oil supply has to pass through this single choke point. It's a staggering figure, and it's why everyone is watching so closely. Yeah, there's really no exaggeration here. This is, hands down, the world's most important energy choke point. The stability of global trade, the health of our economies, it is all directly tied to ships being able to move freely right through this spot. And you can see exactly why it's called a choke point. The whole thing isn't very long, but at its narrowest, it's just 33 kilometers wide. That's not a lot of room. Ships are literally funneled through this tight corridor, which makes it incredibly strategic, but also, you guessed it, incredibly vulnerable. And that vulnerability is now front and center, because Iran has recently made some moves that have set off alarm bells all over the world. So at first glance, Iran announcing they're working with Oman to manage traffic, it sounds almost routine. But then came the other parts. Hints about new rules for passing through, suggestions that maybe they'd start charging fees, and then a pretty direct warning that ships they deem unauthorized could be targeted. You put all that together and, yeah, people are getting worried. So what this all creates is a classic showdown. On one side, you have decades of established international law. And on the other, you have the messy reality of geopolitics and national power. They're on a collision course. Now, the legal side of this is actually really simple. It's a principle called transit passage. It's written into this huge international treaty, and it's crystal clear. It basically says that all ships from all countries have the right to pass through international straits like Hormuz without being stopped or hassled. It is a right, not a privilege someone can take away. You know, here's an easy way to think about it. It's the difference between a public highway and a private toll road. International law sees natural straits like Hormuz as the world's maritime highways. They're free and open for everyone. But man-made canals, like the Suez Canal, they're more like private roads. The country that runs it can charge you a toll to use it. What Iran seems to be trying to do here is basically put up a toll booth on a global public highway. And right here, you can see the conflict in black and white. The law says passage must be free. The reality? Shipping traffic is already way down. The law says you can't charge tolls. Reality? Iran is floating the idea of doing exactly that. The law says you can only make rules about safety. Reality? Iran is talking about targeting certain ships. There is a huge gap between the rules on paper and what's happening on the water. So you have to ask, why would Iran go against such clear international rules? Well, this quote really gets to the heart of it. For Iran, this isn't about some legal debate. It's a strategic move. They're facing crushing economic sanctions, and let's be honest, they don't have a lot of cards to play. But control over this choke point, that is one of the most powerful bargaining chips they have. And this isn't just some local issue. These tensions are already sending massive ripples through the entire global economy. This has consequences for everyone. And the first impact is already obvious. Just look at this, the amount of vessel traffic. The number of ships actually going through the strait has plummeted. The risk is just seen as too high. So shipping companies are now taking much longer, more expensive routes, or in some cases, not shipping at all. And that drop in traffic starts a whole chain reaction. First, insurance costs for any ship that's still willing to make the trip have just gone through the roof. Then you've got massive economies like India, China, and across Europe who depend on that oil, watching this very, very nervously. And sure, other countries in the region are scrambling to find alternatives like pipelines, but that's a long-term fix. It can't replace the strait overnight. So all of this brings us to the big, uncertain question. What happens now? Where does this go from here? The future of this vital waterway is really hanging in the balance, and the stakes just couldn't be higher. Okay, so how could this play out?
Well, right now, the response is mostly diplomatic, but there's a real danger of something called quiet compliance. That's where some shipping companies might just decide it's easier and safer to pay a fee than to risk a confrontation. And the problem with that is the precedent it sets. If Iran succeeds here, what's to stop other countries from trying the same thing in other critical waterways around the globe?
So when you boil it all down, this whole struggle over the Strait of Hormuz is about way more than oil tankers. It's really a fundamental test for our entire global system. It's the established rules of the road versus the raw power of a nation looking out for its own interests. And it all comes down to this single question. In a high-stakes showdown like this one, when the clear principles of international law smash up against the strategic goals of a powerful country, which one is going to bend? The answer could end up reshaping our world.